Hi guys, continuing on with my little series of videos, I've had some rather wonderful and interesting questions come in which I'd just like to take a moment to answer. Now the first one was sent in saying, where can you have a funeral? It's a very simple answer to that. Anywhere. Yes, commonly we go to the crematorium or we go to a burial site or a church. But you can have a funeral service anywhere you like. You have to bear in mind some of the practical aspects of it. So if you're going to have a funeral with a coffin and pallbearers, they need to have easy access. So there's a bit of health and safety to take into account there. But you can have a funeral anywhere. A garden, a village hall, in the middle of the street if it's a street party. Absolutely anywhere. It's about what you want to do. That's all that matters. The second question was, can you make your own coffin? Yes, absolutely. If you ask your local crematorium, they should be able to give you a sheet which will detail measurements and materials that you will need to adhere to. But yeah, you're absolutely free to make your own thing, put your own little stamp on it, or buy one offline if you so wish. It's your choice. It's always your choice. We have a fine example of a Viking longboat which was made, absolutely beautiful. A lot of hard work, but really, really lovely, lovely way to participate in something so special. Third question, do I need to use a funeral director? No, you don't. Obviously our culture has changed as the years have gone by. How did we cope before there was such a thing as an undertaker? We would look after our own deceased. It's really that simple. So no, you don't need to use a funeral director. Obviously it's far more easier because they take care of your loved one on a practical sense. They will help you with all the arrangements and paperwork, and obviously they help store and transport your loved one, which is kind of a big deal, isn't it, if we can't just pop them in the back of the car. So they are there to help. But no, you do not have to use a funeral director, which leads on to another question which I received was, can I have the body at home? Absolutely, absolutely. You are the legal owner, the next of kin is the legal owner of that person. If you want to keep them at home, that's absolutely fine. Now, it's a very scary thing to think of, really, isn't it? It's the unknown, because it's not done that often these days. It is becoming more popular because, again, people want the ownership and, you know, just to keep them with them. So there are some aspects that you might have to adhere to, such as perhaps hiring a cold blanket, depending on the length of time you have that person with you for. But there's nothing stopping you from looking after your own loved one in your own home and doing everything yourself. If you look on the Good Funeral Guide, some fantastic advice on there. It's a really, really great non-profit organisation that has some really, really great resources, so check it out. Here's an interesting question. What do I need to include in a funeral? Okay, so if you're working with a minister and a place of worship, or perhaps with a humanist, there may be some things content-wise that they may insist that you need to have. If you're working with a celebrant, there is no answer to that question. You don't need to include anything that you don't want to include, because there's complete transparency in the way that celebrants work, or there should be. If there's something in that script that you don't like, we take it out. If there's something that's missing, we'll put it in. But that leads on to, do we actually need a funeral? Do we have to have one? No, you don't. Now, some people will donate their loved ones' bodies to science. In such cases, you wouldn't have a funeral, you'd have a memorial. So you would gather together to pay tribute to the life of, but they wouldn't actually be there with you. Some people opt for direct cremation, which is where the body is taken straight to the crematorium, no service is involved, they are cremated, the family receive the ashes back, and again, they'll probably get together, hold a lovely memorial or an interment or scattering of ashes somewhere, and do things that way round. They are more cost effective this way round, but obviously it's each to their own. It's an option and it's down to someone's decision what they're happy with. This leads to another question that comes up quite often. Who can officiate a funeral? Anyone. Obviously, if you're in a church, you will have to have a parish minister. If you're in a crematorium, or any other place for that matter, anybody can officiate. Anybody can lead that service. Obviously, if you're a close family member, you may struggle a little bit with that, because perhaps there's an argument of you need to be in that moment instead of leading it. You know, are you going to be able to acknowledge your own grief and go through that whole process if you're the one that is directing everything? But again, there's the answer to the question. Anyone can lead or officiate a funeral service. Finally, what are green burials or eco-friendly burials? Now, this is where we care for our dead with minimal environmental impact, and we try and conserve our natural resources and reduce our carbon emissions. Now, obviously, we do this through burial rather than cremation, because cremation is not environmentally friendly. Now, to do this, we bury in a natural setting, in a natural burial site or a woodland burial site, of which there are several hundreds now around the UK, which are all, some of them are lovely, some of them not so much, but get on Google and have a look, some are lovely. We bury in a biodegradable casket or a shroud. So you don't need a coffin if you don't want to. You can have just a shroud, especially if you're of the mentality that you want to be reunited with Mother Earth and to nourish her. That's the way you're going to do it, isn't it? Most importantly, for an eco-friendly burial, is the body is not to be embalmed. Personally, I don't see the point of embalming. They're very, very toxic chemicals. I just don't see the point. So obviously that's a no-go for eco-friendly. No embalming whatsoever. And some of the other reasons behind green burials is that where you are laid to rest is not necessarily visually definable, so it aids the natural growth of where you are. It doesn't look like a gravesite, a cemetery. There's not gravestones. You may have a little plaque or a little cross. In some places you don't. Some places they bury a tree, they plant a tree instead, so it doesn't look like a gravesite. You are building something, a forest or something natural and nourishing the earth. So I hope that clears up some of the questions that some of you have. Obviously, if you have any more, let me know. I will endeavour to do my best and do more videos in my lovely garden when it's a sunny day. But in the meantime, keep talking, know your options, and take care.